From Super Mario Bros. To Sonic the Hedgehog, from Minecraft to Legend of Zelda, video games have earned a place in the hearts of many people today. May they be inspiring, exhilarating, tragic, or simply just fun, games are undeniably a big part of our modern world.
I'm John Carpena, and today I'll be talking about the intersection of video games and education. But before we get into that, I think we should talk about how the video game industry developed and how it eventually penetrated education.
When we think of video games, we might think of consoles like the PlayStation, Xbox, or those flashy PC gaming rigs built these days. You might even think of mobile consoles like the Switch or even cell phones, since a lot of mobile games have been released over the recent years. Looking at you, mobile legends. But what if I told you that the very first interactive games were played on massive computers? Meet Birdie the Brain, presented to the public in 1950 by Canadian engineer Joseph Cates. This 4-meter tall device simulated the simple game of tic-tac-toe. And in 1951, Raymond Stewart Williams and John Benet unveiled Nimrod, which stood around 4 meters as well. Nimrod allowed the simulation of the game Nim, a highly mathematical game. It's amazing to think that in the early days of computing engineering, such simple tasks and processes required such a large amount of hardware. Sadly, these devices were either too huge or too expensive for public distribution. It took another 2 decades for someone to finally be able to develop a commercially viable video game device, Computer Space. Not too long after, companies began producing video game machines for home use. Enter Magnavox Odyssey, the very first video game console for families. But to play games on the Magnavox was sort of weird because you had to affix a translucent overlay on the TV to play. The next notable development was Pong by Atari. Atari's Pong was the center of attention during those days. Atari even struggled to keep up with the demand. This just served as proof that the world wanted video games, and the video game industry was about to answer that demand. As the years progressed, games just became increasingly popular and progressively accessible. From cute casual games like Candy Crush Saga to simulation games like Kerbal Space Program, there is a game out there for almost anyone of any age and demographic. Trust me, my mom really likes playing Candy Crush and ang addict niya.
Tignan nyo Ano mang ginagawa mo, ma?
Candy Crush.
Ay, Diyos ko, tamo, addict.
But games aren't just always fun and games. Sometimes games can get serious. I'm talking about serious games.
Now, it's important to note that there are several concepts that deal with the intersection of games and education, so we should talk about them first. First in line, gamification. Gamification may sound like it has something to do with video games, but it technically doesn't. Simply put, it's just using gaming elements within a particular context. For example, some groceries employ a point system for their rewards program. This point system makes people motivated to become repeat customers. Another example would be Fitocracy, a fitness app with levels you complete whenever you perform a specific exercise. But how can you, as a teacher, implement gamification in your online classes? Maybe you know of Kahoot, a free tool on the internet that makes formative assessments fun and feel like a game show rather than a class. Even now during the pandemic, you can still use Kahoot during your synchronous classes. But don't assume that you need computers or the internet to use gamification. In the universe of Harry Potter or the Wizarding World, there's no trace of the internet or any semblance of modern technology. However, Hogwarts has the house system, which is actually an application of gamification. If a member of a certain house does a good deed, that house gets some points.
To Miss Hermione Granger, for the cool use of intellect, while others were in grave peril, 50 points.
And vice versa when a member screws up.
Nothing. I repeat, nothing.
gives a student the right to walk about the school at night. Therefore, as punishment for your actions, 50 points will be taken.
50?
Each.
At the end of the school year, the house with the most points wins.
Gryffindor wins the House Cup.
Though let's get real, it's either gonna be Slytherin or Gryffindor. Anyway, in short, gamification makes learning fun by inserting game elements to motivate your learners. On the other hand, we have game-based learning. Game-based learning can happen with the use of everyday commercial off-the-shelf video games and what we call serious games. Before we talk about serious games, let's talk about the commercial off-the-shelf video games first. First example, City Skylines. A city building game where you're appointed as the mayor. You decide where your citizens can build their homes, where shops can be built, and where factories can operate. You also have to make sure your city has enough power and water, that traffic isn't too congested, and your citizens have access to efficient medical and educational systems. City Skylines is well known for its attention to detail with regards to logistical systems. If, for example, the traffic is just too much in your city, power plants might not get the oil or the coal they need. If delivery trucks are stuck in traffic, factories won't be able to receive the raw materials needed to make products. And when there's a fire trucks might not be able to get to the site in time. But how can we use this game in education? Actually, Hotela et al. Used this game to educate students about city planning. Think about it. How you lay out the city in the game will influence everything else. The economy, garbage collection, medical care, emergency services, etc. The amount of detail in the game put into the effects of traffic congestion is just so good. Now, I think the next game will be more familiar to you. It's Minecraft. This game may look low-res, but the freedom to do whatever you want in this game is its selling point. You can build houses, you can build towers, you can build castles, you can build literally everything and anything in Minecraft. Someone even made a USD campus in the game. Now, with regards to education, Victor Rydberg School in Sweden has made it mandatory for students to tackle lessons utilizing Minecraft. What lessons in particular? Well, lessons on electrical grids. You see, in Minecraft, you can build machines using material called redstone. Redstone works like a power source or a wire at the same time. Using redstone, you can power other equipment, such as doors. Some people actually make roller coasters using this. And there are a lot of videos on YouTube showing how to make calculators on Minecraft. Calculators. When I see kids on YouTube making these mega machines, God, buti na lang hindi ako nag-engineering. The benefits of Minecraft in education have been time and time again investigated. For example, it's been used to help students understand Roman architecture. In a much simpler way, it's actually also been used to help students learn about agriculture. So maybe you as a teacher can use Minecraft in your school. I'm willing to bet your students will love it. Anyway, on to the next game. During the time I handled personal development classes for senior high school, I used the game Space Team. The mechanics of the game are really simple. Team members press buttons, drag levers, turn knobs to make their ship move. And they have to do this because if they don't, their ship will be engulfed by an exploding star. But here's the catch. Everyone has a different set of panels and gizmos on their screens. And the instructions that appear on your screen almost never pertain to the set you have. You need to relay the instructions you see on your screen to your teammates. And this doesn't happen on a turn-by-turn basis. You all receive instructions all at the same time. You don't know who to tell the instructions to. And if you fail to relay the instructions, they fail to press the correct button or whatever. Their time runs out, and eventually the ship gets eaten by the supernova. As you can imagine, this can lead to extremely frantic moments between players.
Extra sauce. Extra sauce. Extra sauce. Wala ko nun.
Wala sa akin, wala sa pressurized spigot. Guys, pressurized spigot. Wala sa...
Asteroid, shake.
Okay, deactivated.
Shake, 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 shake.
So what do I do in connection to my class?
Well, first, I let them play on their own. Second, I let them see that the way they're doing it, they might die early in the game because they're not communicating properly. After that, I give them a little coaching session on how to make it better, how to communicate better. And that's how I enter my lesson. And then after the lecture, they'll apply the concepts within the lesson to the game itself. And then hopefully, by practicing within the game, they might be able to adapt it into their real lives.
With guidance and possibly modifications from teachers, commercial off-the-shelf video games can be a good way to help facilitate student learning. Now what about the other kind of games? What we call serious games. While the previous games were designed primarily for fun and entertainment, serious games are used for training and education. Most of these games are free and can be played using browsers. One example is NitroType. NitroType is primarily modeled to be a practice tool for users to exercise and improve their typing accuracy and speed. When a player correctly types down a letter, their car goes faster. When they commit a mistake, their car goes slower. So you see, this game, as a serious game, teaches someone directly and overtly. Next up, we have Lightbot. In Lightbot, you help a cute little robot turn on blue tiles. You help the little robot by programming it using little icons. Some teachers use this as a guide for programming lessons. Lightbot was actually evaluated to help develop computational thinking. And honestly, I kind of enjoy this game. It's cute, it's fun, and it requires you to think to get through the levels.
Light, jump. Oh, no. Dito dapat din sa baba. Light. No, mali. Jump. Okay, tapos, ikot ba? Okay, tapos, ikot na ako pag ganon. Okay, I can do more P1s on that. Tatlong P1. Okay, pam, ikot, jump. Yan. Okay, tapos, yes!
When I was a kid, this was one of my favorite games. This game taught me a lot about cellular biology. This game's name is Cellcraft. In Cellcraft, you play as a cell under the supervision and guidance of a team of scientists who are trying to develop you. The game teaches the functions of organelles really well, and even provides an in-the-game description as well as an in-science description. Later in the game, you also have to protect the cell from pathogens. It has actually been studied that Cellcraft improves thinking skills. The game's looks and mechanics are still very much acceptable by today's standards. And honestly, while I was recording this video, I kind of didn't notice the time and ended up playing more than I needed for this webinar, so...
So, given all that, gamification, game-based learning, serious games, how can you, as a teacher right now, implement these things into your online classes? Well, the short answer is, it depends. It really depends on a lot of things, and we'll talk about that now. The first factor you might want to consider is pricing. Of course, games tend to be expensive. For starters, City Skylines cost around 1.5k and Minecraft 1.3k. But there's such a thing as Minecraft for education, which is around 300 pesos a year per student. So there's that. But if you really want things to be accessible financially speaking, you may opt to use the serious games because these games are usually free. Another thing you should consider is the content. Like, alright, you may say that war games can provide simulations of bullet projections, but you can't use them in your classes because students may not be even at that appropriate age to play these games. Content on serious games for education, on the other hand, are surely to be appropriate for your students because they were developed with education in mind. Lastly, I think this is the most ignored factor in terms of games in education: the teacher. Is the teacher able to use games constructively in the classroom? Do they have the skills and knowledge to manipulate game environments, to use games in the first place? Pretty sure that a lot of people listening to this webinar don't even play video games, but that's okay. That's fine. Take baby steps in integrating video games into your classes. And when you integrate games into your classes, your students will definitely appreciate the effort for helping them be more engaged in learning. And that's my webinar. I really hope that you learned something today in this video. I hope you enjoyed the video games that I showed you. I hope you enjoyed some of the jokes that I said or whatever, yung mga kalokohan ko. And yeah, good luck in your online classes and don't touch me.